Hey guys, welcome to another developer interview here with Parole. With me this week, Linnéa Harrison, the creative director at Neat Corporation, developers of the upcoming PlayStation VR game, Budget Cuts. Linnéa, welcome to the channel. How are you doing?
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing really great. I'm excited to be here, and I'm super excited for Budget Cuts to come out on PSVR now. Soon.
Yeah, September 25th, right? So
exactly. Yeah.
Right around the corner. After a slew of delays, which we won't talk about. Right?
Yeah, it's been tough, honestly, like transitioning to working from home. Some of us had worked from home a bit now and then previously, but then there's also some IP requirements when it comes to the PlayStation dev kits. Right. And so coordinating like which week, which of us was going to be able to be with the dev kit in the studio was like, okay, this week the programmer gets it, and this week we need some testing, and this week the designer gets it. And so we had to like do a little bit of musical chairs there. But in the end, I think it's a pretty good game, obviously, and we're really excited for it to be released.
I think I saw pictures on Twitter of one of the developers putting pictures of his coworkers on different chairs.
Yeah, that was Leo. He's the programmer on
he was
Budget
losing
Cuts.
his mind.
Yeah, well, as long as he keeps putting in those code submissions and making the game run and making it really good, then whatever he needs to get his days through, we will help provide, even if it's printouts of our faces.
Excellent. So right up to the last minute, that's how this works, right? It's not like, oh, this game is done, it's gone gold, we're good to go, now we're sitting back on vacation. It's like, it's literally to the last minute, right?
Well, yes and no. I mean, the game is done. Like, knock on wood, the game is done. But we always have like little polish things, little small tweaks that we want to do here or there, like it's one of those labors of love. It's never quite done. You're always like, oh, but maybe if I tweak the difficulty in this one little section, or maybe if I just lower the height of this crouch over here, or maybe if I add some Easter eggs to a few different areas, then, it'll feel like I've realized my vision as a developer. And so a lot of us get stuck in that where we're just really excited, especially when it's all come together. And so because we get to do the wonderful patch system with PlayStation, which is really nice, we can make sure that we get all of that content in, even if the game is already done.
Yeah, I think any artist knows exactly what you're talking about. Like,
it's so hard to let go.
Right? It's never done until somebody gives you a firm release date.
They're like, step away from the computer, Linnéa. Step away. I'm like, no.
Hand it over. Give us what you got. It's done. Yeah.
Exactly.
So I over on the PC side of things, PC VR gamers are really familiar with Budget Cuts. This is a game that's been out for a little while over there. But for us PlayStation VR gamers, this is kind of a new thing. We've been hearing about it, hearing how great it is, great reviews on Steam. But maybe you could let us you could give us like the deep dive and tell us like what the game is all about. Give us the elevator pitch.
Sure. So in Budget Cuts, you're playing an office worker and you're filing files and stamping and approving or denying, declining approvals and stuff. And you notice that all of your other coworkers have slowly been replaced by these robots that are doing the job. So it's automated work. And eventually you are being called now to the HR department, which is super scary. Everyone talks about like, oh, no one ever comes back from the HR department, which I think a few of us who work at Neat Corp have had like bad experiences with corporate institutions in the past and work experiences in the past. So we tend to put a little of this into the game. But we were also really inspired, obviously, with Portal, with Mirror's Edge, with other stealth games like Thief. And we really wanted to kind of bring this feeling of hide and seek that you have when you're a kid into VR, because it just felt so visceral to actually physically duck and to like lean around. There's very few VR games where you see people get fully physically into the world, right? Where it requires you, well, it doesn't necessarily require, but it really encourages you to put your entire body into it in order to duck and weave and stuff like that. And I think the moments that you see that happen are when you see the magic of VR come to life. Mm-hmm. And that's the kind of thing that we just wanted to like get to as many people as possible. So when we were done building Budget Cuts and then finally finished our like story saga in Budget Cuts 2, which is a continuation of what happens in Budget Cuts 1 narratively and mechanically. It kind of expands on everything and bookends it nicely. We said, like, you know, how can we get this into the hands of as many VR enthusiasts as possible? Because really, that's what we're excited about, right? Like, we love the world of VR. We just want as many people who are excited about VR as we are to get to play around with these mechanics in the space, because I really do think that this, like, ducking and weaving stealth mechanic in VR is very different from what we're seeing in a lot of other games. There are a few other VR games that are using a stealth mechanic in VR, especially now. I mean, VR's been out a while, but it's pretty. I think it's still pretty unique of an experience when it comes to the like fully featured games that we have that are like full experiences. So I'm excited for people to finally get their hands on it.
That's a lot to unpack, and I have a lot of questions about everything you just said.
Yes.
In the first one is going to be a strange one, maybe not a strange one, but you said require a little bit of ducking and weaving, but then you sort of pulled back from that a little bit. How accessible do you think this game is for a wide variety of gamers?
Well, both from the get-go, from the design of the approach to the levels, it's extremely accessible in that we provide options for the player to how they want to approach a scenario. Do you want to go full Rambo and just throw a crap ton of knives, or do you want to be tactical and find the way around and sneak and be really stealthy, or do you want to maybe, I don't know, like set some traps up and like really wait and like distract them, and then they have to come over, and you know, classic stealth stuff. So there's always options when it comes to how you approach things, which also means that there's options in terms of what types of environments you put yourself into, right? When it comes to physically moving around, we do encourage a lot of that. And I often say require, but I think that's just because a large percentage of our players end up doing a lot of that movement. But we do have accessibility options like buttons and stuff for crouching for you, or standing, or ducking, and that sort of stuff. In case that's something that you don't want to do or don't feel comfortable or able to do. So we do have those options. And then, of course, like I said, the levels are designed from the get-go to provide different playable options as well.
That's really good to hear. I love nothing more than, you know, jumping behind the desk, like actually crouching in my living room and doing what I'm doing. But we hear all the time, you know, a catch and release, you know, you actually had to row the boat yourself. And there were a bunch of people that like, I can't row the boat. Like I'm not able to. Or Crisis Brigade, there's no duck button. And that requires almost constant ducking. So this is really, really good to hear that, you know, you're listening to gamers and giving them what they need. That's really nice.
Yeah, definitely. And that was another thing that we really wanted to keep in mind with the cover, because obviously cover is a really important mechanic when it comes to stealth games. And so for us, cover wasn't this binary sort of, there's one cover height like it used to be in third-person FPSs or third-person stealth games or anything. But rather, we've got a lot of different objects of varying heights and pillars. So like, even if you just move your head a little bit or duck a little bit, you're stealthing, and you still get that sort of feeling. So even if you have a limited range of motion, we want to try to help you feel like you're doing this sort of cat and mouse game that you would if you were, like, again, a kid playing hide and seek.
Nice. I really like the sound of that. And just to clarify, 2 move controllers required, or we get DualShock 4 support as well?
2 move controllers required.
Excellent. So you mentioned Portal in all of this, and I think that's it kind of goes without saying. You know, you see the movement system in this game, and there's portals. It's like, okay, I get it, Portal inspired. And I've got a couple questions about that, but the first one comes to us from one of our viewers, Nick Mulo, the Game Cat. He says, making a game with portals will inevitably draw comparisons to the game Portal. Even though your gameplay is different, was this a thought or concern? How much inspiration from that game did you take?
Yeah, so I mean, we as game developers are big fans of Portal. Obviously, it's a really well-designed, well-executed game. And we did take a lot of inspiration for that for the movement mechanic. But what actually inspired us more was in Unreal Tournament, the translocator that they have, like the teleporter gun. That was the first inspiration. And then what came later was Freya Holmér, who was the one who designed the teleportation gun experience, or like that mechanic, was looking into, because that was like in the beginning of commercial VR, right? Like no one knew as developers. Like we didn't know what caused motion sickness, what reduced it, etc. So she was really spending a lot of time testing different methods of locomotion and found that, teleportation reduces motion sickness. That was like our main goal, was reduce motion sickness for as many players as possible. And then the other thing was not being able to teleport too quickly from point to point, because if you teleport really, really quickly, you still get the same inner ear nausea that you get if you're teleporting or like moving slowly, smooth locomotion, right? And then the third thing was if you can see where you're going so you don't get disoriented, which you often do with teleportation. And so it sounds a little silly when you say it like this, but in the end, the easiest solution was, in order to show the player where they're going, we show the player where they're going. And so that's kind of where the Portal idea came from. And I mean, I would say that we're more inspired by Portal's puzzle mechanics and dystopian world storytelling. But the Portal and Portal does kind of lend itself to a pretty brilliant comparison.
Okay, so let's tackle the story, how it relates to Portal first. I have so many questions, I don't even know where to start. But the first one I want to say is, like, do you think that Budget Cuts we expect a humorous slant to it, right? That's kind of what I'm expecting after seeing the trailers.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, a lot of the robots that you're finding around the space have this sort of sarcasm or this sort of tongue-in-cheek humor about what's going on, and they're trying to mimic human behavior. And so the way that they're doing it is extremely, well, to me, it's really funny. And then the delivery by Duffy, he was the voice actor for the robots, and he's just brilliant, brings them to life.
That's awesome. We've definitely seen games that imitate Portal, and it goes horribly wrong. And so, I'm assuming you guys probably have a pretty decent writer over there. I mean, the voice acting is great, but when you don't give them the material to work with,
yeah.
So what's going on with the writing staff over there? Who's working behind the scenes?
Yeah. So we actually had a few different writers come on. Originally, we were actually working with a couple writers from Valve, who had worked with Portal before. But eventually we decided to go a little bit more local, a little bit more familiar, because there was just this turnaround time and things got a little lost in communication. We just needed to finish it. So we had a lot of the soul and a lot of the essence there. And inside the studio, we all have pretty a lot of wordplay and punny sense of humor, but it's pretty dry. Like in general, Swedish humor is extremely dry, I would say. So there's a lot of that sarcasm that comes through. And so we have Emilia. She was able to do a lot of the writing out of the dialogue and taking what was there from the start as these little seeds. And she was able to flesh those out. So she was a consultant for us and a freelance writer who helped us out in finishing up the story for Budget Cuts. And I think it worked out really well. And then, of course, you always want to let the voice actors kind of take their own spin on things and really, if they come up with something hilarious while they're in the moment, you kind of have to take advantage of it, right?
Right. Very nice. So this is going to be tough because a lot of PlayStation VR gamers are absolutely sick of things like click turning and teleportation. And for a game that is 100% based on a form of teleportation, I would really like to go a little more into detail about how the teleportation works and exactly what happens when you open these portals. How do you open the portals? And kind of explain to some people who have already dismissed your game because of teleportation why they should be interested in it still. Yeah,
so for us, the teleportation and the stealth kind of go hand in hand. So what happens is you've got this little gun apparatus that fires out a ball, basically, and it's a physical ball that goes in the world, so you can bounce off of walls, you can go underneath furniture, all that kind of stuff, and wherever the ball ends up, that relates to the center of your play space, and that's where a portal opens up. And so you will have the portal attached to your gun and you can look through it, and it's a nice way to peek around corners, do I want to go down that hallway, is there a bad guy there? Because this is our way of, if you're in VR, you're always in first person, right? You're never going to get third person. But this was our way of lending that extra informative step that stealth games tend to have, where you can see over your shoulder or see around a corner a little easier. So we were trying to mimic that sort of and provide that opportunity for the players to scope out their environment, to see where they wanted to go safely without committing to going there, right? Because you can still cancel the portal if you want to and go somewhere else, or you can confirm that that's where you want to go to the portal. And then once it does, that view screen just envelops where you are. So it just expands and envelops, and you're automatically there. And it really does help, I think, with a lot of players who don't have their VR legs, so to speak, and aren't as used to free locomotion or smooth locomotion. And I think that's one of the things that we really think is important in terms of accessibility, but also inclusivity, that we really want VR to be for everyone. And from the ground up, that was really important for us. And yeah, we understand that there's some hardcore VR players out there that just really want to feel like they can move around the world the way that they do in the real world without being limited by teleportation. And that's when we really started looking into, for Budget Cuts 2, putting in what we call mutators, which is all these different options for movement. And then we also did time mutation and weapon mutation, gravity mutation, AI mutation, you name it. And so those are things that we've been looking into bringing into Budget Cuts 1, but the code bases are a little different. The engines are a little different for those two. So it's not as easy as it sounds, but it is something that we really want to do because it opens up this sort of cabinet of possibilities for those VR players who really know what they want.
How long should we expect this campaign to be?
Oh, that's always a tough question. It took me 6 hours to play through it, beginning to end, and I've designed a lot of the levels. But there are people that play through it in 2 hours, and there are people that play through it in 10 hours, in 12 hours. So it really depends on what kind of player you are and how you're approaching the stealth/combat scenarios, right? If you're just running through, stabby, you're not checking out all the corners, looking for all the side quest mission stuff, context, stories, things, then it could be 3 hours. I would say 2 hours is someone who knows their way around and can get to stuff very quickly. Maybe 3-4 hours for someone who is more combat oriented. But if you're more stealth oriented, then I would say 6+ probably.
Are there incentives for taking your time and really exploring the areas, finding Easter eggs?
Well, I think so. I'm one of those people that likes to collect a lot of things, and we do have collectibles in every level. We have 2 collectibles per level, one that's a little easier to find and one that's a little bit more difficult. So if you are that type of person, then definitely have a look around. Some of them are very creatively hidden. Some of them not so much, but you'll see.
Okay.
There's inside jokes for them all.
Very excited. Nice. Can you explain exactly what Budget Cuts Arcade is? This is free DLC that comes with the game, but I keep seeing an image of an arcade machine, and it's this is how you access it. But I'm I don't. What is it?
You're right. You hit the nail on the head. It's free DLC. It's extra levels with a new game mode that we released because there were so many delays with Budget Cuts, and we wanted to say, we're sorry, we love you, thank you for waiting, here's some free stuff. And so it's 4 new levels, it's a new game mode, which is more arcadey, which is why we call it arcade mode, and it is accessed via an arcade machine in the main menu. So in the main menu, if you don't want to get started with the main story, which is right there in the menu, in the play button, you can turn to the arcade machine, turn it on, and there's 4 levels. And they're really good for replayability. You get scored based on how few teleportations you do, if you get headshots, if you're able to kill AI or robots without being seen first. So how stealthy you are, and total time that it takes to get that sort of stuff. And so really getting the top score there, and you get a score on your arcade machine, which is really cute, just old school top scores. And so it's really nice to be able to play against your friends and try to get high scores there. And it really gives you that replayability function.
This sounds like there's an awesome platinum trophy in this game. Is there a platinum?
I actually haven't done much with the trophies for PlayStation, so I'd have to ask one of my other developers about that.
All right, I hope so, because this sounds like a lot of challenges that would be really, really fun. I do Saturday morning live streams where like I spend 6 to 8 hours in games trying to get the platinum,
Nice.
and this sounds like right up my alley. So as soon as you find that out, please let me know, and because we're all very curious about that.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, already having a sequel out, usually when I talk to a developer and I go, hey, like there are probably a bunch of ideas that like got left on the cutting room floor, but since you already have a sequel out, I'm betting a lot of those got implemented into the sequel. Is there anything that didn't quite make that transition that you wanted to do?
The thing is, like, we kind of live and breathe this world of Transcorp that Budget Cuts is set in, and I kid you not, we have these internal pitch days where people who are just like dreaming up ideas can pitch whatever they want, our developers, and we had like 6 games that were pitched within the same universe, within the same. And I mean, even when working on it, we're like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if this character had like a little, a chapter just for this, and what about like a little intro with this character over here, and like we want to do more with this mechanic over here. And so there's a lot that we haven't done, and I hope we get the chance to do it in the future. So please buy our games so we can keep making more Budget Cuts, because it literally is how we survive. Like we need to sell games in order to survive as game developers.
How businesses work, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, you're right. We did come out with a sequel, and that one does kind of narratively bookend this arc. This arc that you are going through as the player, and talking to Winta on the phone, who's your mission giver, your kind of eye in the sky, and the kind of difficulties that you have with the Transcorp world. So that part is sort of complete and done. But I really hope that we get to tell more of the stories that we're excited about with Transcorp and Budget Cuts.
I don't want this to come across negative, because very frequently things I say come across in the worst possible way. But Budget Cuts kind of was delayed out of these release windows where it would have been the only game out that month, and it would have been like a really dead time for PSVR, where it's like everybody would have been like, this is the only game out, so we're going to buy it no matter what. But then it got kind of moved to this place where, I mean, you're coming out right before Walking Dead Onslaught and Squadrons, Star Wars Squadrons. I mean, is that a concern? Like you like all shaking in your boots, going, "Oh God, what are we gonna? How is this gonna happen?" But or you're like, "No, we're cool. We're very confident over here."
I mean, it's not. I wouldn't say that we're concerned. Like our main goal with this is to get Budget Cuts to more audiences, right? And that's kind of been our goal, regardless of launch window. Like, it's always nice to launch in a time when there's very few other titles, because then there's a higher likelihood people are going to see it. But I mean, I know this sounds like cheesy, altruistic, or whatever, but we really do just want Budget Cuts to be available for more audiences on more platforms, and that kind of is going to happen when that happens, right? Like, we always wish we could release exactly when we want to, but it's the real world, and like real stuff happens, and we're humans who try to be nice to each other when life comes in the way, rather than like, crunching through stuff and killing ourselves, because we've all been there and it all really sucks. But yeah, ultimately we just really want it to get out to as many people who love VR as we do as possible. So that's our main goal.
Yeah, well,
as long as that happens, we're good.
Well, we certainly respect the decision to delay it until the game's ready. Obviously, we'd much rather have a crazy packed month full of great games than to say, oh man, remember Budget Cuts? It didn't turn out that good. Too bad about that. So Neat Corporation's working with fast travel games on Budget Cuts too, right?
Yeah, definitely. We actually worked in the same office space as them. We rented the same office as them when we were both a little bit smaller. We were about 5 developers. They were about 10 developers at that time. And that was while they were working on Apex Construct, which of course PSVR players will be familiar with by now, hopefully. And so, we got to know them really well, and a couple of us know each other from working together in the industry beforehand. And of course, the VR community in Stockholm is pretty tight-knit. So it was like we needed some help. We need some manpower for Budget Cuts 2. And we also knew that we had this bow and arrow mechanic that we had put in and tested in a few levels. And we really loved it, but we said, you know who's really good with bow and arrows?
So good, so good.
It's our buddies over at Fast Travel, and they were actually giving us feedback, and we were play testing their game. They were play testing ours back when we were working in the same space. And we were like, that was really nice. We should just do that again. And we got it to work out. We got some office space where we could all sit together and hash it out. And I think the game became a lot better because of it.
Nice. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And have you had a chance to play Wraith? Shh, we won't tell anybody. Is it amazing? Is it really scary?
Gotten a chance to play Wraith yet? No, they're really, really holding it close to their chest.
I was trying to get some inside information.
I know. They were like, we're working on something soon, and I was like, what is it? They're like, we can't tell you. I was like, come on, we tell you everything, and we know everything. Just they're like, nope, can't tell you anything, and so we got to see the announcement when everyone else did.
Crazy. That's crazy. We're all excited. We're all excited. All these great games coming to PlayStation VR from a bunch of talented studios, including yourself and everyone over at Knee Corporation.
It's a good year to own a PSVR.
It's an extremely good year to own a PSVR. Any last minute additions that you want to throw out there to really convince everyone that this is a game they should be looking forward to?
Just like, it's Budget Cuts. I mean, if you love VR, please play it. Get your friends to play it. It's Budget Cuts. What more can I say?
Wow.
I hope you love it as much as I do, because I really, really love it.
Can we get that on a box quote? Just be like, Budget Cuts. It's Budget Cuts.
It's Budget Cuts. Like,
right?
Come on.
I love it. Awesome. Well, Linnéa, it was so nice talking to you today. Can we get a meow for all the game cats out there?
Meow. Meow.
Very nice. Thank you so much.
Sure thing.